The Siege of Vienna, when the West stood on the edge of darkness, ***. In the year 1683, the fate of Europe hung by a thread. The great city of Vienna, beaten, starving, and surrounded, stood alone. A mighty force loomed outside its walls. The Ottoman Empire. For centuries, the Ottomans had surged westward, unstoppable, relentless, from Constantinople to Budapest. City after city fell like dominoes. Now, only one stood in their way: Vienna, the last major Christian stronghold before Western Europe. If Vienna fell, the road to Rome and Paris would be wide open. The world was watching. The Sultan of the Ottoman Empire, Mehmed IV, sent his most trusted commander, Grand Vizier Kara Mustafa, with a mission: crush Vienna, break the West. And he brought with him one of the largest armies Europe had ever seen, more than 150,000 soldiers, fueled by holy war and centuries of conquest. They arrived at Vienna's gates in July 1683. Inside the city were only 15,000 defenders, exhausted soldiers and local militia, outnumbered 10 to 1. Their defenses were old, their hope fading. But they would not surrender. Not yet. The siege began on July 14th. Ottoman cannons roared day and night. The sky turned to smoke. Their engineers dug deep tunnels under the walls, planting explosives that shook the city to its core. Inside Vienna, food ran out. Disease spread like fire. Death hung in the air. Children cried. Soldiers prayed. Families dug graves, before the battle was even lost. But still, they held on, waiting, praying for a miracle. And far to the north, a plan was forming. Pope Innocent XI called for a Christian alliance, a last stand to save the West. The Holy Roman Empire, the German states, and the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth answered that call. At the head of this coalition rode a warrior king, January 3rd Sobieski of Poland, a military genius, feared by his enemies, respected by his allies. He marched with 30,000 Polish troops, including his legendary cavalry. The Winged Hussars, elite horsemen with armor shining, wings on their backs, and lances raised to the sky. As August turned to September, Vienna was on the brink of death. The Ottomans had breached the outer defenses. Kara Mustafa prepared his final assault. Inside the city, priests gave last rites. The churches held their final prayers. The people prepared for slaughter. But then, from the surrounding hills, a sound, a distant horn, a thunder of hooves. Sobieski had arrived. September 12, 1683. The day history shifted. The coalition forces, 70,000 strong, descended upon the Ottomans, who had grown weary and overconfident. The battle exploded. Steel clashed. Smoke choked the air. The Ottomans were caught off guard, but still held their ground. Until, from the heights of Kollenberg Hill came a sound like thunder. 3,000 Winged Hussars charged down the slopes. It was the largest cavalry charge in human history. With wings roaring in the wind, they slammed into the Ottoman ranks like a storm. Lances shattered. Horses screamed. Panic spread. The unbreakable Ottoman line broke. Kara Mustafa's command collapsed. His army fled in chaos. Within hours, it was over. Vienna was saved. Europe was saved. The dream of an Ottoman conquest of the West died that day. Kara Mustafa returned home in disgrace and was executed by the Sultan. And King Jan Sobieski became a hero across all Christendom. The victory at Vienna was not just a battle won. It was a turning point. The beginning of the Ottoman decline in Europe. A moment when the West came together, not in politics or power, but in purpose. Sometimes, a single battle decides the fate of continents. Sometimes, courage, unity, and a thunder of hooves are enough to turn back the darkness. The Siege of Vienna was that moment, when the world stood on the edge of destruction. And a king, a coalition, and a cavalry charge saved the West. Subscribe to Historical Lens and Conquerors for more true stories that changed the course of civilization. Because history isn't just the past. It's the reason we're here.